Be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following. Under Section 2.2-3711, discussion concerning prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcements have been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the county. That is project 2014-010, 2014-018, 2014-033. Consultation with legal counsel and briefing from staff members or constituents consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by public body regarding specific legal matters requiring provision of legal advice by such counsel. Under that is 1 Old Sourwood Road. Discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. The Agency on Aging, Board of Equalization, Board of Zoning Appeals, Parks and Recreation. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
We're in closed meeting. Need a motion to go out of closed meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
For the time that I was there,
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Yes.
Mr. Creed?
Yes.
Chair Brown?
Yes.
7 ayes.
Certification of closed meeting. The Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to the affirmative record vote and in accordance with provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the board that such meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting, to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the vote board. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
aye for the time I was there.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item on our agenda is our invocation. This is where we observe a moment of silence to reflect on the business at hand. And upon completion of that moment of silence, we'll be led in the pledge by County Administrator Mr. Craig Meadows.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Our next item is presentations. 2014 Digital County Survey winners. The Center for Digital Government and the National Association of Counties have announced the 2014 Digital County Survey winners. The annual survey recognizes leading examples of county using technology to improve services and boost efficiencies. Montgomery County placed in the top 10 among counties with a population of 150,000 or less. I'm going to ask the board members that we go down and as I present the award. You know what we're talking about here. How come you didn't come on? Let them all get around so we can take a picture with them. Congratulations. Miss Melody, all in here too. This says Digital County Survey 2014, Montgomery County, Virginia. 10th place, population category less than 150,000. Presented by Center for Digital Government in association with NACO. Sponsored by CDWG, Dell Software, Laser Fitch, and Sprint Business. Congratulations on behalf of the board. We want to thank you. Hope that sometime in the future we can get another. Get over here so we can get over here where these short people are.
Nobody could read this stuff.
Okay. Congratulations. Our next presentation would be the Montgomery County Annual Report.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask Ruth, do you want to give an introduction to?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity to present the FY14 annual report. You may recognize a few folks in the video. We couldn't get the latest Hollywood talent, but we did pretty good attracting the talent that we could get for the video. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and play this.
Got some latest Montgomery County talent.
Montgomery County, Virginia. From its green rolling farmlands to the scenic New River to its majestic mountains, Montgomery County is home to 94,393 residents and its 393 square miles. Located within a day's drive to 2/3 of the country's population and close to Interstates 81, 77, and 64, its roots go back to its importance as a stop on the Wilderness Road in the 1700s. Its origin traces to 1776 and an American hero of the French and Indian War and the American Revolution. Richard Montgomery was a major general in the Continental Army who died in the attempt to capture Quebec from the British. The county's retail hub, the town of Christiansburg, was incorporated in 1792 and named in honor of Colonel William Christian. Blacksburg, the second largest town in Virginia, originated on 38 acres of land donated in 1798 by William Black, thus its name. Montgomery County was created from Fincastle County. It originally had 12,000 square miles, which later gave birth to or added to many other counties. Today, the county government is comprised of an elected member from each of the 7 districts. With a budget of $171.4 million, the county provides public education, public safety, fire and rescue, courts, social services, and more. Montgomery County has evolved from a place where the economy relied on livestock and crops to a thriving high-tech community. With many scientific and research businesses and institutes, it is also home to Virginia Tech, one of the nation's leading educational and research facilities.
My name is Bill Brown, and I represent District E on the Board of Supervisors. I'm a longtime resident of Montgomery County, and this is where my wife and I raised 4 children, and I served as the Town of Blacksburg's police chief until I retired after 35 years of service. I like to tell visitors this is a great place to live and raise a family. Public safety is a high priority, and our sheriff's office is busy keeping our community safe. Sheriff's deputies and 911 dispatchers received 32,559 calls for service over the past year. This resulted in 1,224 arrests. Of these arrests, 123 were for driving under the influence. Deputies are also making a difference through school and community events, such as participating in the Feeding America food collection. Our volunteers responded to 2,104 calls, and rescue answered the call 8,366 times. Our volunteers deserve our utmost appreciation. Emergency Services Coordinator Neil Turner received the first Stand Critical Humanitarian Award at the State Emergency Managers meeting held this past week. One of the best parts of my job is welcoming new and expanding businesses that bring high-paying, good jobs and millions of dollars of investment to our community. In the past year alone, Falling Branch Corporate Park, Earl Road opened its new corporate offices. In addition, Polymer Solutions broke ground to expand and build its headquarters. And at the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center, there are 100 employees at Rackspace's new $9 million building.
Your Board of Supervisors is working hard to be a good steward of your resources. My name is Chris Tuck, and I represent District B, and I'm an attorney in private practice here in Montgomery County. Our financial and purchasing departments continue to receive reaccreditation and accolades for their professional practices. We're selling off unused properties, such as the former Texas Hollow Road Park site and the Plum Creek former Greenbox site. We also want to protect our beautiful county from the damage that heavy rains and soil erosion can do to our streams, creeks, and rivers. The newly created Engineering and Regulatory Compliance Department will be working with developers and residents to make sure the county is compliant with state regulations. Scouts, civic groups, and other volunteers picked up more than 5 tons of trash along 48 miles of roadways for the annual Lumen and Lumen event in April. And enter boxes at the 3 consolidated sites are also keeping gently used household items out of the landfill. Over the past year, residents donated 38 tons of clothes, housewares, and more to help Goodwill create job opportunities.
Hi, I'm Mary Biggs, and I represent District F. As a lifelong educator, I'm proud to say that the county is making major investments in public education. The beautiful New Auburn and Blacksburg High Schools opened this past fall to much fanfare. These schools and the soon-to-be-open New Auburn Middle School, which is currently undergoing renovation, are helping to ensure our students receive a first-class education. Montgomery County is committed to school security as new technology is installed to keep both students and teachers safe. I'm also happy to report that the county worked with the town and state officials to relocate the popular Christiansburg Park and Ride Lot to a better location off Interstate 81. In addition, our county libraries offer opportunities for young and old alike to use computers publications and books. From large print format to paperback to the latest bestsellers, more than 700,000 items were checked out over the past year. And it's not all just about books. The Blacksburg Library won a Library Directors Award for hosting restaurants at its first ever chili call. The Christiansburg Library won the Best Adult Program Award from the Virginia Public Library Directors Association for its Artist in Residence series. The newest addition to the Christiansburg Library, the Story Walk, which was unveiled in April, encourages reading and exercise at the same time.
Hello, my name is Gary Cooley, and I represent the parts of Eastern Indiana County, which include Christiansburg. To help the public school with their capital needs, the county is surplusing school properties that are no longer needed. The former Elliston Lafayette School was sold to Shaw Development, LLC. Working with the county officials, the site has been rezoned for multifamily residential development, giving citizens another option for a place to live as their community grows. In places for it, the county is working with the Taylor Harbor community to buy and renovate the former Places Fork Elementary School for affordable senior housing. Other community uses might include a cafe, farmers market, and small retail stores. In Blacksburg, county and town officials held a joint meeting to discuss the future of the old middle school property.
Hello, I'm Todd King, and I'm the newest member of the Board of Supervisors. I represent District D, and our community has many farms, mountains, and places to enjoy nature. If you are looking for something to do, the County Parks and Rec Department can take you rafting or kayaking on the New River. You can go for a gentle stroll with a friend on the trail, play a friendly game of bingo, discover that item you've always wanted on a shopping trip, and more. For the adventures, there are hikes, rowdy bike races, and rope courses. For kids, there are summer camps, sports teams, and other exciting ventures. Parks and Rec offers the only outdoor pool in the area, the Frog Pond Swimming Pool. In fact, it had more than 22,000 visitors last season. At Moses Mile and Plum Creek Park, things are bigger and better than ever, with new dugouts, new playgrounds, and shelters, and more than 1,000 kids participating in Parks and Rec athletic programs this year. Thanks to Sheila Moses Mile, Lowe's, Christiansburg Walmart, 17K Diamond for all, and Gentlemen for helping out with sports equipment, upgrades to facilities, landscape, and the Ripken baseball team. In addition, thanks to all of you who donate to Let the Kids Play Scholarship Fund that makes it possible for all kids to participate in athletic programs. So next time your kids say they can't find anything to do, please check out Parks and Rec.
My name is Annette Perkins, and I represent District A. If you are 55 or older, RSVP invites you to use your life experience and skills to help your neighbors in need. They can match volunteers' interests and skills with organizations that need assistance. Do you enjoy crafts, animals, cooking, knitting, or just looking for something to help out with in your free time? Then RSVP has a job that's perfect for you. This year, RSVP received a Best Practices Award from the Commonwealth Council on Aging. The award of $3,000 was given to the Supplies for Seniors program, which donated household and personal care items to 250 homebound residents. And who doesn't love fun, food, and fashion? Our volunteers model fashions from area thrift shops and clothing banks for a good cause at this annual event.
Hi, my name is Matt Gabriel. I'm an associate professor at Virginia Tech, and I represent District G. Civic engagement and government transparency are important pillars of democracy. To make voting easier and more convenient for Virginia Tech students, 2 new voting precincts will be available this fall for HOPKINS residents. At the courthouse, jurors may now fill out online questionnaires on the county's website. If you're getting married is a self-service kiosk available just for marriage licenses. Modernizing technology and more online services are even being recognized at the national level. The county ranked in the top 10 in the National Digital County Survey. Your Board of Supervisors is also holding county conversations in the community to give citizens a chance to talk with us, to ask questions, and to share their concerns. The Montgomery Christiansburg cable TV channels and YouTube channel are another way we're reaching out to citizens. Our last annual report on YouTube was an investment class by National County Information Officers. The county's investment in tourism is also paying dividends. Radford University students are designing campaigns to market agriculture tourism to help local farmers. The Crooked Road Festival celebrates the artistic and musical heritage of Appalachia through performances, art, instrument-making demonstrations, and clogging workshops. Stay tuned as we hear more about next year's festival plans and how tourism brings immediate tax revenues and benefits our community. Hi, I'm Craig Meadows, County Administrator for Montgomery County. Montgomery County is a wonderful place to find gainful employment and to raise a family. Also, to enjoy natural beauty and serenity, and pursue meaningful volunteer activities. The Board of Supervisors is making significant investments in public education and public safety. The new public safety building will provide a safe, secure, and modern facility for the Sheriff's Office and the Regional 911 Dispatch Center. The county is also working with school leaders to create a community of excellence and prepare students to lead productive lives and make positive contributions to society. In addition, the county recognizes the need to replace our nearly 40-year-old animal shelter and build a facility that encourages more residents to adopt dogs and cats. I'm confident our county leaders will continue to provide strong direction for our citizens and good stewardship for our resources. Thank you for your continued support as we strive every day to provide quality services to our citizens, and we look ahead to a successful future.
Well, thank you. As you can see, it was a very busy year, and I'm sure we'll have another busy year coming up here. I also wanted to thank two of my staff members for their hard work on this video. Chris Coleman, who's in our audience tonight, and you might recognize him as being the young man who got married a couple of weeks ago. And Josh Rosenfeld got married on Saturday, so he's unable to be with us here tonight, but Josh also put a lot of work and effort into the video as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ruth, on behalf of this board, we commend you on the outstanding work. I believe this one was even better than the one last year. And I think it would be in order for this board to give you a round of applause.
Yes, thank you.
And also give yourselves a round of applause for the great commentary throughout the video. I think you all really made our accomplishments come to life. We appreciate it.
We're going to wait till after the meeting for them to sign autographs if they need to sign.
Right. I'm sure Hollywood's waiting right outside the door. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth.
Our next order of business is a delegation from the Virginia Department of Transportation. Mr. David Clark from VDOT will provide an update on road projects and issues in Montgomery County. Welcome, David.
Thank you. I won't stick around for the autograph session. Might try to catch you later. Last month we've been working on, along with just our normal stuff for the summer, which is the unpaved roads, dust control, some mowing and patching. Some of the bigger projects we've got going is we got our crews are working on the revenue sharing project to do a little bit of widening, pipe replacement, drainage work, and eventual paving, surface treatment paving, but still a hard surface. About 4/10 of a mile, 3/10, about a third of a mile of Blue Springs Road. That was a revenue sharing project the county approved. We also had a couple major pipe replacements out in Pilot that we had to cut open the road, and we had two sets of double line of pipe. And I think I mentioned the last time, I think we were maybe not quite done, but we also replaced quite a number of pipe down Elliston at 609 Boners Run. Did a lot of pipe replacements up there. We're also working on doing some work on Galleon Ridge Road. Goes between Mount Tabor and Catawba Road, I guess it is. It's an unpaved road. It's got a lot of crossings, a lot of drainage issues. We're trying to reestablish some ditches there and do some widening and pipe work there. We've got a major culvert replacement going on Lick Run Road, which has required us to have the road closed to one lane at a time. And it has to be done. You can't put it back, so we have a temporary signal up there on Lick Run. Never thought you'd see a red light on Lick Run Road, but there's one out there right now. We got the patchwork done at the, there's a dip, the board mentioned it last month on Laurel Ridge Mill Road. We looked at that, and I think right now that it's not a pipe failure. I'm hoping it's not. We didn't see anything major when we looked in there. I think it might just be some settling around that pipe, so we're going ahead and just patched it. If it continues to settle, we might have to run a camera or something up through there because we couldn't see any failure, but right now we're hoping that patch will hold the settling. For further checking of the pipe on Fairview Church, I think those will have to be replaced after all. I think the bottoms are out of those. But we'll get that scheduled. It's not in any danger of collapsing anytime soon, but that's something we're going to definitely have to schedule. And then I guess the last thing is that there will be a citizens information meeting at the middle school, Christiansburg Middle School, on September 23rd from 5 to 7. That will be for a project upcoming on the 81 bridges over Route 8 at exit 114. The bridges need to be replaced. They're probably original bridges from when the interstate was built, but I think we're also looking at if there's anything we can do along with that project that would improve that interchange in general. It's a lot of traffic. Deceleration lanes get full. The ramps aren't big enough. There's a lot of traffic there in the mornings and evenings. So this will be a time for public comment. It's not a public hearing. It's just called a citizens information meeting, but we will take comments during those, and we'll have some displays and some different options just to let people know. Again, that's September 23rd at Christiansburg Middle School. Starts at 5 o'clock, 5 to 7. It's just, there's no formal presentation. It'll be an open house kind of thing, but there will be videos and things like that to watch, so you can come at any time during that and see all the information. That's about all I have. There are a couple of projects that I don't really have any updates on. They're all progressing. 603 project between Route 11 and 81 is progressing pretty well. They haven't closed it down yet, but they probably will fairly soon when they have to get into some of that cut. They've replaced a box culvert on that project. Of course, the Peppers Ferry Road project continues on there at the mall. And we've got a bridge project underway in the Fayette at the crossing to the old overhead truss bridge crosses the North Fork of the river. That one's got both the 603 and the bridge project probably have at least a year or two before the completion date. The completion date on Peppers Ferry Road, however, is in November. So they'll be working to finish the Huckleberry Trail bridge connection. I got the bridge part, not the connection part down to the existing trail. Work on that, and we still got quite a bit to do to make the connection there at Franklin Street. But that's all for the update. I'm glad to take any questions or requests the board might have.
Hi.
Questions, Ms. Perkins?
This is not a question, and you may know about it, but I had a constituent talk to me last week about 460 by Heritage Hall, that coming out of that entrance into Heritage Hall, there are no signs whatsoever that say one way, or not, don't turn here.
Don't turn left.
And there are quite a few of elderly people who come into Heritage Hall to visit relatives. and they have had several people turn left onto the wrong lanes instead of going right, where they have to go up and then go across. So this constituent asked me, and the people at Heritage Hall seem to be very concerned about it too, to ask you to put a sign up there that says one way, or some way that you can let these people know that they're not to turn left.
Absolutely, we can get that done.
Because several people have, and there have been some really near accidents there. So thank you very much for that. And then the other thing is Ms. Miller again, up on the upper end of Clay Street, she still would like to have some yellow lines down the middle of that road. I know before you told us it was so narrow that
We can't get the far end. We might be able to get the part that gets up to Cedar Orchard.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where she wants to know. Thank you. And thank you so much for the Peppersferry bridges and the roads. It is just wonderful to ride through there now. So
It's
thank
a
you.
nice project.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mr. Green.
Just want to see if you have anything on the update on Mount Pleasant widening.
We're working on right away now for the revenue sharing part. Are you talking about the one that there's a project currently underway? I don't know if they are still planning. They had at one time hoped that they could finish before winter. I don't think that's going to happen. Contractually, they have until March or April anyway. So that one's moving along. They're working on some pipe down there, and then we're working on easements and right away on the revenue sharing section.
Other questions?
Yeah, just refresh my
Peters.
mind again about the Forest Service Road. Are we not doing anything about it, or are we?
Right now, we're not, because we have never, I understand the Forest Service doesn't have any record of it, but we've never maintained that road. It's considered very similar to an entrance that anybody else would have across VDOT right-of-way. And our plans show that the Forest Service has an easement to maintain their road to its connection to 460.
So that in-between part just is sort of, how do you describe that? It's just sort of...
Well, it's a Forest Service road that connects to 460, but it crosses VDOT right-of-way just as any entrance does.
Right. Okay. So the
It's
Forest
similar
Service...
to what we did on Reese Mountain Road was the same way down
So the Forest Service would have to do the work on it?
Mm-hmm.
And you guys would agree that that was okay?
Yes,
Okay.
We consider it a Forest Service road. It's certainly not a VDOT secondary road.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you all.
Next order of business would be public hearings. Subject A, the following public hearing was advertised pursuant to the law in the New River Valley section of the Roanoke Times on August 24th, 2014 and August 31st, 2014, and is vacation of a lot line and public utility easement, Blacksburg Country Club subdivision, David and Edith Duncan.
Ms. Bree's going to handle that for us this evening.
Yes, good evening. I have a copy of the plat here, if we can get it pulled up. Okay. The Planning Department has received the plat to vacate the property line between lots 411 and 412 in Blacksburg Country Club Estates. And when that plat was recorded, there were also public utility easements placed along all property lines. So the vacation of that property line also includes the vacation of a public utility easement. The surveyor, Mr. Martin, has given us certification that there are currently not any utilities located within this easement. And we have notified all individuals and have not received any response from the public. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them.
Questions?
Chairman, I would just add that under state law, what's required is whenever we get approached about changing a plat, and that's what this is, they want to change the plat that created these subdivision lots. And when it's a subdivision where lots have been sold like this one, this is an old subdivision or older, then in order for the plat to be amended, in this case, it's just a minor amendment, creating one lot from two lots. The board has told the public hearing that we're doing today, and then you have to approve an ordinance authorizing the signature on the plat by the planning director, and vacating the lot line. So that's what's before you today.
Okay, any other questions from
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to, the board may recall at one point in time I had a conflict in regards to Duncan Automotive. However, I've never represented David Duncan, don't currently represent him, and ran it by the county attorney, so I don't have a conflict with this interest. But since that had came up a few months ago, I thought I would just bring it to the board's attention and point out that I did seek the county attorney's advice.
Thank you, Mr. Tuck.
I have one question I'd like to ask you. You said there are no wires or water or anything going through that as of now.
As of now.
Are there any expected, and to the point that they may decide they want it one day and it would
Not
be
be
back in the wrong way?
Right. Not that we are aware of. We have not been contacted by anyone. There are public utility easements on all property lines, so the newly created lot would still have a public utility easement on both sides. So there still would be an easement to get back to the country club, if necessary.
Other questions? Thank you, Bree.
Thank you.
We'll open it up to public comment. If you want to speak on this public hearing, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes and direct all your comments to the board. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and move on to public address. Have no one signed up to speak at the public address session, but if it's anyone in the audience who would like to address the board at this time, please feel free to do so and state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes and direct all comments to the board.
Chairman Brown, members of the Board of Supervisors, County Administrator Craig Meadows, good to see you again. You missed me last month, so you know what I'm going to talk about at least one thing. But it's good that Dave Stillwitz, I asked him to stay. I want to credit his staff for the work that was done in our district on Merrimack Road. We consider it one of the smoothest roads now maybe in the county, but that's caused some problems. VDOT has done a car count, and they do have that study. I'm in the process now of putting together a petition to seek a speed study to look at just above my home at 1477 Merrimack to go all the way to Price's Fork Road with a speed reduction. The problem is it runs out in Mr. Price's driveway just above my house. And if you come through there, people are doing 55 and 65 miles an hour on motorcycles and pickup trucks and even some bicycles. And you'd be surprised how fast the Virginia Tech cycling team goes through there now on that pavement. The Sheriff's Department has been working with myself and several of the neighbors. And if you've been down through there, state police now is doing practically once a week, they're doing a road check in front of the Pentecostal church. And they've been slowing down some of the radar problems. VDOT, once they finished the road and the contractor came back, we expressed some concern that the road was too high and the shoulders were causing problems if you had to go off the edge of the road or you're a bicyclist. VDOT has done a great job, come back and level that off and made it a good shoulder if you have to get off or you're a cyclist, you have to deal with it. That has created a problem. And we've been very lucky, and you haven't heard about it, but we've had several accidents involving the cyclist. Near misses with cars, mirrors on trucks as they go by the bicyclists that knocked them off their bicycle or off the side of the road. And speaking for the neighbors, in addition to the speed study that we're going to request, we'd like to request tonight that we look at the possibility of putting some share the road signs to help to at least alert people that are using that road for a shortcut between Christiansburg and Blacksburg and Price's Fork Road, to at least have the knowledge that there are bicycles on that road. If you haven't been down through there, every day the Virginia Tech Cycling Club, a lot of professors at Virginia Tech are coming from Christiansburg and going down Price's Fork Road to the university, riding bicycles at least twice a day. So we want to avoid the problem. We hope we can deal with that and look at the speed study later on. But VDOT has worked with us on so much, and the Sheriff's Department needs to be commended for the job they've done on trying to slow down the traffic, and the state police are working with us. The other thing I got to bring back to you again, and Craig, I haven't heard anything from you lately, but our Save the Eagle has taken another step. I met with officials from Roanoke College and one of the people that now working for what was the designer company that made it. Now, we attempted to get up onto the dome at Roanoke College. Trust me, it can't be done. So, two things we're hoping that you're still considering doing some work and taking care of the Eagle and saving it. The second thing is I would like to personally request, whether it's myself or a county staff member, be allowed to go up in a bucket truck or one of the T-lifts to look around the base of that. We are convinced, including Roanoke College, are convinced that there's a signature on the base of that. So in cooperation with Roanoke College, I am currently personally trying to locate the family who donated it anonymously to Montgomery County and also the artist. What I'd like to do is once we get it repaired and we can take that next step is to bring that family or descendants of that family back here. You know, but we've got to find it out. Roanoke College is convinced that there's a signature on the bottom of the ball that is on top of their dome and is on top of ours, that we can at least possibly, and they're really interested in now because they want to make it part of their history, to identify the sculpture and possibly the donor. Because we found a third one, Craig. There is a third one in Lynchburg. It's on private property. It used to be public property. But there is a third one in Lynchburg. And I'm working on that too, to possibly go up and look at it with permission. But we would like for the county to at least consider it, myself and several other individuals, to let someone examine the bottom of that so we can at least take care of that mystery. We will be launching a Save the Eagle Facebook page with old pictures. And some of those pictures have identified where the damage might have come from. When it was taken off the dome and put to the side of the old courthouse, it was then moved and turned on its side. And in some of the historical photos in the museum, the Montgomery Museum shows that indentation. And now that seems to be where our holes are. So I hope you still are thinking about that. And we'll be still continuing working on the mystery of finding out who donated it and who is the sculpture. But please remember, Merrimack Road, we want to take care of prevention before it happens.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak under public addresses? We'll move on to the addendum, which I don't believe we have one tonight.
Sir, not tonight.
The next item is our consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is it any discussion of the items on the consent agenda? If not, would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
New business, subject A, proposed New River Valley signage on Interstate 81. Proposed New River Valley signage on Interstate 81. Mr. Meadows, you want to comment on that?
Sure. This is a request that we received from the New River Valley Economic Development Alliance. They have been working to have signage placed at the WITH Pulaski County line on I-81 northbound and on the Roanoke Montgomery County line on I-81 southbound, signage that basically says entering the New River Valley. They have asked, as part of that, there needs to be a resolution adopted. Pulaski County, I believe, has done something similar for the sign on their side. This would be a resolution that we pass on to VDOT. Any and all costs associated with the signage or work required to place the sign would be covered by the Alliance. They're just asking for an endorsement from our board to support the sign.
Questions, comments, or do we support a resolution?
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Subject B, proclamation, Fire Prevention Week. Proclamation Fire Prevention Week, working smoke alarm saves lives. Test yours every month, and the week would be recognized from October 5th through 11th, 2014.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and have a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to go into work session. Do you need 5 minutes before we go into work session?
I do.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then when we come back, we'll take a motion and everything to go into work session.
No public comment.
Our next item of business is to go into work session. Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into work session for the purpose of discussing the following: FY 2014 year-end report, school board request to carry over FY 14 unencumbered funds, school board request for funds for capital needs, VDOT revenue sharing program FY 16, school board disposition associated with properties adjoining Charlesville Middle School. We'll have a motion, please.
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Before we take
Okay.
up that, I noticed that we did have the Duncan, and I gotta admit, I was kind of focused on whether I had a conflict or not and checking with Marty, but there was no public comment, and I wasn't thinking about adding it to our addendum. I did speak with them. They indicated that they did want to start construction as soon as possible in regards to their house. I don't know what the board's pleasure is whether we want to add that. There is on our tab a resolution in regards to that. And so I didn't know if we wanted to add that to our addendum. I know it's somewhat out of order, but I thought I would bring it to our attention before we went into work session.
Other comments from board members?
I don't think they have nobody spoke against it at either thing.
Right. It is in my district, and I have no problems with it whatsoever.
Okay. Now,
Why don't we just could we just have one of the supervisors bring it up during board reports?
Board report, yeah.
is that okay? Bring it. One of the supervisors can bring it up in the board reports.
Can I propose maybe just doing a motion to add the ordinance that's in the packet to the board's agenda to be taken up after work session? How about that?
Okay. We have a motion and a second, I believe, to go into work session right now. Do we need to act on that first?
Well, I can withdraw the second.
Or you can do a substitute motion.
Yeah, can she withdraw her
We can just
second?
withdraw the second and the work session one, and then, can't we withdraw it?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay, we withdraw the second and the motion, okay? And now we'll deal with the resolution in our packet regarding...
Just to add to the board's agenda, and we could add it under other business if you want.
Oh, that's a good idea.
We'll add it under other business after the work session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Okay. Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Now, we need a motion to go into work session for the items that I previously read.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
We're now in work session.
Mr. Chairman, the first item this evening is an update on the fiscal year 2014 year-end, how we finished the year, and Mr. Mark MAGRUDER is going to present that one for us. I believe Mark and Angie are tag teaming on that one.
Good evening. My name is Mark MAGRUDER. I'm the county's budget manager. Tonight I'm going to talk to you a little bit about revenue. And then after I go over how we did in our revenue collections for the fiscal year 2014, Angie Hill, our finance director, is going to talk to you about our cash position at year end. I'll give you a little background. Tonight we're going to talk about our fiscal year 14 revenue highlights. And really the ultimate goal each year is to provide you guys with the best possible and most realistic estimate of our revenue as we look forward into the next fiscal year. And that's a challenge on many different fronts. One, because we're dealing with imperfect information and there's a whole host of variables that we do not control that impact that. What's interesting this year is in the 10 years that I've been reporting on our revenue estimates, this is probably as close as we've been in 10 years. So when we look at our total revenue collections, which includes all of our designated and undesignated revenues and excludes all of our grant funds, and I'll explain that in a minute, we ended up exceeding our estimates by $203,000, making our collections within 0.19% of our estimates. So we were at 100.19% of our estimates. We do not include our grant funds in the estimates of the original budget due to the uncertainty in those collections and the timing issues that come in with those. So we usually report them out separately, and we'll show that on the next slide. Our designated general fund revenues were less than the estimates by about $700,000, and that was due largely to the Comprehensive Services Act funding, which was about $560,000 of that $700,000. And really what was going on there is when you don't have the expenses associated with that program, you're not going to collect the revenue associated with it. So there's a direct link between the revenue that is collected and expenses. When you don't have the expenses, you don't pick up the revenue. Our total undesignated revenue collections, which is the bulk of the county's revenue, exceeded the estimates by nearly $1 million, which again was within 1% of the total estimate. We had some unexpected, unplanned, and unbudgeted revenue sources that included the sale of real estate, an increase in prepaid taxes, recovered cost revenue, and other miscellaneous collections. If we take those unexpected revenues out, especially the prepaid taxes, because those are taxes that are prepaid, meaning they're not really due until this December, but they showed up in our previous fiscal year because people have the opportunity to pay that stuff forward. If we take those out, the estimates, or as far as the actual revenue that we collected, $800,000 of that $1 million that we were over was due to those additional revenues. So if you pull that out from the equation, we were within $166,000 of our total revenue estimate, which was 17/100%.
I keep asking Mark if he'll do better, but he says that's about as close as he can get.
It's pretty darn close.
Our personal property taxes, if you remember when we built the fiscal year 15 budget, we talked about we had $1 million shortfall in motor vehicle valuations. That was experienced. We talked to you about that as it was going on. We did have that offset this year by increases in other areas, such as merchants capital, business furniture and fixtures, and public service corporation. Again, these issues were known. We talked about them as we built the fiscal year 15 budget. The next slide shows two separate charts. One that shows our undesignated and designated revenues, which is really what we're focused on here. And again, you can see that we were within 0.19%, $200,000 on nearly $10 million. And then our agency grants, again, we missed that by about $1 million, but those are mostly due to the fact that there's a time lag between when the revenue is booked and when we actually receive it. So that doesn't mean we're not going to receive the revenue, it's just the gap between when we book the revenue on the budget side and when we actually collect it. Talk a little bit about our revenue picture going forward. The county's in the process of projecting revenues for fiscal year 16. The estimates will be evaluated and refined through the county's December collections. Preliminary revenue estimates will be provided in January of 2015. And when we come back to you with our budget in March of 2015, we will have our final revenue projections. Commissioners any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Angie Hill, and she's going to talk to you about our cash position.
Good evening. This chart I'm sure looks familiar to most of you. We show you this a couple times a year, usually in the fall and again during the budget process. And it shows the amount of cash that we spend versus the amount that we take in over a 24-month period. The reason we do that is because, as you know, we spend money on a fairly consistent basis month by month, but we only collect revenue. Our major collections come twice a year. So if you see the amounts that are above the line in the middle of the page, those fall around the time that we're collecting taxes, and those are the times when we have collected more than we have spent. If you look at the low point of this, it's $22.8 million, which is fairly consistent with the amounts that we've reported the past several times that we've given you this chart. And this is our cash sheet. Sometimes we print this out on a long sheet of paper, but we've tried to consolidate it a little bit. It does have a few more boxes than it has in the past. If you start at the far left-hand side of this, $33.4 million is our general fund cash as of June 30th. That number is not audited yet, but we don't expect it to change significantly. And then we're going to move across the page and look at items that we need to reduce that cash balance for that have already been allocated but not yet spent at June 30th. The first number is the $22.8 million, which is the low point in cash, the amount that we need to pay our bills during the year that we showed you on the chart before. And that's an important element when we measure the county's financial health. That's one thing that the rating agencies and other people look at to make sure that we have adequate cash flow to meet our expenses as they come due. The next box, $3.2 million, is the amount of funds that have been designated for specific expenditures. They've actually been appropriated through the end of August of this year. We're presenting this to you a little bit earlier than we do some years, so that fluctuates as time goes on throughout the year. We sometimes appropriate more money from fund balance as we go along, but right now it's $3.2 million, and the major items in that category are the county and school purchase orders, things that we had ordered and were obligated to pay for at the end of the year, but we hadn't yet received those items, so they were still on purchase orders, and you appropriated those into the new year. The next box, $3.8 million, is the amount of reserves that we have set aside. Those funds haven't been appropriated yet, but they have been set aside so that we know they're there in case we need to spend them. And they are fairly consistent with the past few years as well. The final box on the right-hand side of the page in green is $3.6 million. That's our unallocated cash balance through June 30th, and then adjusted for these items that we have spoken of just a minute ago. It's important to note that at this point, no estimates are included for school carry-forwards, additional funding that the schools have requested, county carry-forward requests, revenue sharing for roads for fiscal year 16, or for county one-time pay supplements. And we'll talk about those items in just a minute. At the very bottom of the page, it shows you the historical comparison of unallocated balances. And if you look between 2013 and 2014, the balance in 2013 is lower. That's the year that we had transferred the $5 million into the capital projects fund, 3 for schools and 2 for the county. So that's part of the reason for that. The box in the middle of that section just below the highlighted area is just to show you that these numbers do continue to change as we go through the year. When we reported this to you last fall, which was in November, the balance was $7 million, but then, as I said, that's when we took the $5 million out of that and transferred it to the county and school capital projects funds. To date, the county departments have not been given the opportunity to request carryover funds, so those have not been included in these figures yet. We don't have an idea of how much that might be. Also, traditionally, the county provides about $500,000 in revenue sharing funds for roads. If we continue to do that, that's something that we might need to consider putting in the regular budget, since we have done that over the past several years. And that's on your another item under the work session a little later tonight. And finally, you may recall when we presented the budget to you in the spring or late winter, it was included in Mr. Meadows' budget message that because we were not able to provide a pay increase for employees, that we would look at our year-end balances and see if we would be able to provide a one-time pay supplement for county employees, for all county employees. We have estimated the cost of that at between 1.5% and 2%. One-time payment would be estimated at between $295,000 and $393,000. And again, that has not been taken out of these numbers. The next couple slides, I'm going to just briefly go over the school carry forward request and some other requests for funds that they've made. That request that you have on the Dropbox under tab E and F. And there are school representatives here to speak with you. If you have questions in the next work session, you can address those with them. These requested funds are one-time only and not recurring, so the associated cost also would be one-time only. The first major category is personnel with just a little over $200,000. The second category restores some lost revenue, which is approximately $400,000. The last one on this page is a new initiative that's partially funded by a grant, and that's just under $330,000, the e-learning backpack program. This slide shows some additional new initiatives of approximately $200,000, some maintenance projects. The schools have a list of maintenance projects, but they've not specifically identified, or their board has not yet approved the specific items that would be covered under that. That's $575,000. $75,000 would be is undesignated. It's not earmarked for a specific purpose as of this time. And that gives a grand total for the carry forward request of just about $1.8 million. They've also requested additional funds of $575,000. That's not the same $575 that I spoke of earlier. This would be broken down into the categories shown for building repair and improvements, technology improvements, and school bus replacement. So the grand total for both of those requests is about $2.4 million. So just to summarize, the last box on my cash sheet was $3.6 million. That's how much has not been allocated yet. And then the school carry forward request is about $1.8 million. $575,000 has been requested in addition to that, which brings us down to a net of $1.3 million. And then, as I explained earlier, there are some county considerations that have not been addressed at this point. Revenue sharing, county carry forwards, the Board of Equalization, which is the final piece of the reassessment project, will need to be funded, and the one-time pay supplement. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Thank you, Angie.
Angie, and I'm just,
a minute.
I guess it'd be better to ask the school board this question.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. Mr. Chair, the next part of the work session is to discuss the school board request to carry over fiscal year 2014 unencumbered funds. The letter from Ms. Blackburn to me is under tab E of your agenda. But also, Angie did a great job of outlining on the slides what those requests were. And Angie, I'm going to ask, can you put those back up just so if there's any discussion on those items, because it's easier to look at that than perhaps the letter. Thank you. If we need a toddler, we'll let you know. Thanks. Mr. Chair, this is for the board's discussion, and I know Ms. Blackburn and Dr. Staten and Ms. Miano are all here tonight, so I'm sure they'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions? Just waiting for.
I was going to wait my turn.
No. Okay, who's got any?
Who we asking questions to?
Yeah, who you ask questions to? I'm sure that somebody from the schools can come up and answer the question. Welcome, Superintendent Blackburn.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here this evening. Would you like for me to make some opening remarks, or you want to just
dive right in?
Or you just want to ask me questions?
Go ahead and make some opening remarks. Get warmed
If you
up.
don't mind, Mr. Brown. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. It's been a while since I've stood before you, in fact. And also want to thank you for your flexibility in rescheduling the joint meeting. I think both of our boards are very, very busy at the moment, and my board chair specifically is working on the West Coast, and I have had some family situations that took me out of the county for a little while, so we do appreciate that. While our state dollars have declined, you have continued to step forward to try to fill the gap to the greatest extent possible. And every year I make a little pledge to myself, and last year it was that every time I stood in front of an audience, I would talk about the power of public education in my own personal life. And this year, my pledge to the audiences is that every time I stand before an audience, I'm going to talk for a minute about the roses. Because we always talk about the thorns, and we have so many things that we need to be very, very thankful of, and they have been created largely because of a tremendously supportive community and the hard work of the supervisors and the school board to make our schools a great place to be. So I'm just going to mention 4. Number 1, I don't think there are many school districts in the state who can say that despite the tough economy of the last 5 years, you all have completed 2 projects that were already in process in 2010, and you have funded 3 additional projects, which almost are finished with the opening of Auburn Middle School in January of 2015. Despite the fact that we have $10 million less in state funds than we had in 2008, 2009, our class size has remained relatively stable. And because of some efficiencies in how we operate the schedules of secondary schools, we've actually gone down in class size in the secondary schools and have remained within 1 of what class size was in 2008. And that's with $10 million less in state money and the increased costs that are associated with the things that we buy. Our great employees have not been rewarded nearly enough, but they have seen small raises over the last couple of years, and they have had opportunities to receive special supplements, such as you will talk about later, for your employees for this school year. There has been tremendous support for special needs at the school, and you have demonstrated that by stepping up to the plate both with security and safety enhancements for our schools, and also with special funds which have been used for projects that were long overdue, including improvements at the Christiansburg High School Theater. And finally, although our schools have been challenged in the area of mathematics, I have to brag on our high schools for just a second. We were in the unfortunate situation of having 3 high schools last year at this time that were accredited warned. And this year, part of what we did with our carryover was to focus some of our resources on additional mathematics materials, tremendous opportunities for professional development for our teachers, for instructional coaches in the area of math, and our high school math scores improved pass rates between 9% or 9% increases in passing to 25% increase in the students who passed their SOLs as high schools. And of the 3 high schools that were accredited warned, 2 are fully accredited this coming year, and 1 missed it by .03, which is in effect one student. If one more student had passed that test, they would also be fully accredited. So the key to financing the math coaches was actually the use of carryover funds. And so I thank you for the part that you have played in the smelling the roses that I'm trying to do when I get an opportunity this year. So now for the carryover request, and I'm happy to entertain any questions, or I'm happy to talk about why we did some of the things we did, or maybe it'd be best to just let you ask questions, because Angie did a great job of summarizing what the requests are for this coming year.
Mr. Tuck?
A few things, and I guess I'm looking at the use of carryover funds to hire full-time employees. Those funds are potentially not going to be there next year. Is that something that your board took into consideration?
Yes, sir. Each of the positions that were added when they were approved by our school board had an asterisk beside it that said it was a one-time position, and the school board specifically asked questions about them being one-time positions. And although I would like to say they would continue, I'll take one time over never any day.
The other aspect of things, when your staff was here back presenting the budget, I didn't hear numbers of almost 1.8 million of rollover funds. Can you help me get a better idea of where these funds came from? When we were talking about $200,000, $400,000 approximately, and we were at 1.8.
Well, let me put it in a perspective, and then I'll tell you where it came from. You know, I did the same thing because I was surprised that we had as much as we had, and I would offer several pieces of information. Number one, we have a number of people who are new in position, and we were probably much more conservative about some of the choices that we might make than we would be if we'd had someone who'd been doing that job for 25 years, as Walt Shannon had done before he left. And so we had new people in place. But I went back and looked at the perspective of our carryover since 2009-10 school year, and we're in the ballpark. In 2009-10, our carryover was $2.63 million. In 10-11, it was 1.56. In 11-12 and 12-13, which were the toughest years in terms of the budget, it was 0.43 and 0.53. And this year, 1.78. The funds came equally from two sources. One, additional revenue was approximately $800,000, and the other, we had $800,000 in unexpended funds in our regular budget. So just as Angie was talking about things happening and timing being critical, we had a number of reimbursements that came in a little bit earlier than they ordinarily would have, and they would have shown in this 15 budget year instead of the 14 budget year. In addition, there was approximately $325,000 in federal funds, which is Medicaid reimbursement primarily, the title funds, and also IDEA. So that's where it came from.
In regards, and you're breaking down things for us, and the 575 is an additional request, and then I look, and that appears to be the maintenance numbers in regards that looks like it's going towards maintenance, if I'm reading things correctly. And it doesn't list out those projects, but it almost seems like that's the afterthought in regards to the maintenance is the 575, and that's what you're asking us to address, but it's not being addressed in your budget. Can you help me understand that?
Yes, I'll be glad to offer you my perspective. For the past 2 years, the supervisors have very generously provided us an additional $575,000 for capital needs, specifically for continuation of a comprehensive roofing project for $250,000, for, let's see, buses, $175,000, and then $150,000 for technology. This year, the supervisors were not able to offer us that in your preliminary budget. So I positioned the $575,000 in our carryover request this way. I'm asking you to please look again for the $575,000. And if you find the $575,000, it would be used for the buses, the roofs, and the technology, just as it has been used in the 2 previous years. Then the school board would use $575,000 of our carry forward to do other projects. And the board has not approved this yet because it didn't seem appropriate to spend a great deal of time on it until we saw the position of the supervisors about the 575. But the roofing projects would be $76,000 at Shawsville Middle School, the chorus area. GLE Center, the center building at Gilbert Lincoln, the Fallen Branch Elementary School gym, and the CHS concession stand project. Those are the next ones on the roofing priority list. So then the next thing that we did in looking at what would we do if we had another $575,000, the board has charged me with coming up with a new capital plan this year and to try to look at it in some different ways. And so we looked at the Cardinotech study and we looked at the comprehensive capital maintenance project list that we've been working with and that you all have seen on a number of occasions over the last several years. And my first recommendations to the board for priority projects were the following, and I offer you these because these are the ones that I will recommend first to the board so that you have an idea. The priority projects that were on my list, and the board has seen this, so it's not anything that not seen, but they have not acted on it because we don't know whether we need to act on it or not. The next capital projects would be CHS, Eastern Montgomery High School, and Shawsville Middle School, $100,000 to repair, reseal, repave tracks, tennis courts, and paved playing areas at those 3 facilities. Then the second one would be CHS, Shawsville Middle School, Gilbert Lincoln, Margaret Beeks, Christiansburg Elementary School, replace stage rigging and lighting, Phase 1, and that's a $100,000 expenditure. The third project on my recommendation list is Christiansburg Elementary School, Margaret Beeks Elementary School, Gilbert Lincoln Elementary, replace the ACM soffit outside those buildings, which is deteriorating. It's $150,000. The next project is replace the water heater at Fallen Branch Elementary School, and it's a Cardinotech replacement project, and it's $12,000. After that, CHS, Bellevue, CPS, Beeks, Gilbert Lincoln, Fallen Branch, replace priority deteriorated concrete sidewalks, ramps, curbs, and light poles. Part of that comes from Cardinotech, and part of it comes from the capital maintenance project list. And the final one is brick masonry improvements for serviceability at CHS and Shawsville Middle School, and it's a Cardinotech recommendation. So basically, my board charged me with taking 2 major documents and trying to start chipping away at both of them by doing some prioritization and merging projects from both documents.
Last, in regards to the e-learning backpacks, does this include IT support?
Yes, it does.
And for how, so it's just for the 1 year?
It is funded for 1 year only, and the school board had an extensive discussion about that, knowing that if we don't have money, that it might be a 1-year project.
And the grant is a 1-year grant as well?
The grant can be 1 year because you are not penalized or not committed for 4 years, but it is available to us for 4 years. And even though our 2 high schools are no longer accredited warned, because they were accredited warned at one point, they're eligible, and they get $208,000 per year for those 3 schools for each of 4 years to put a device, a one-to-one device in the hands of every entering 9th grade student. That would start with this year's class, 9th grade class, and if our timeline moves forward, which I hope it will, we would be able to have those devices in the hands of students probably by about the time of winter break, or if not immediately beginning in the 2nd semester.
I don't have any further questions about comments, questions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Gabriel.
I kind of well, maybe Mr. Creed can go first. I have a general question actually for Mr. Meadows, but so if you have something for Mrs. Black.
Go ahead, Mr. Creed.
Yeah, I just was wondering, would you be willing to furnish this board if we were to decide to pass these things that you're asking for? Would you be willing to give us the same thing that you have just read off from there to where we will know where the money is going to?
Absolutely. I did give Angie a draft copy, and so I'm happy to provide that draft copy, and I would bring you a list of what our board would approve as projects.
Okay.
Excuse me, I just got a couple questions. On this e-learning backpack, if we approve this, are you going to have money in your budget next year to cover the cost, or are you going to have to come back?
Well, I'm not going to have money until I know how much money I get. And once I know how much money I get, there was a lot of discussion among our board members about the e-learning backpack and what was the value in doing it 1 year. And I would tell you that I think the value in doing it 1 year is the fact that we have an opportunity to touch 500 kids in three schools and another 500 at Blacksburg High School. And I'll share a story with you to tell you why I think it's so powerful to do it for 1 year. I went to the Winning Choices Assembly last fall, and if you're not familiar with Winning Choices, it's a character education program we do every year. And they had speakers in the Blacksburg High School auditorium speaking to our students 9th through 12th grade. And their minds were everywhere, and they were talking to their buddies, and they were respectful, but obviously they were not in tune. The minute he started saying, take your cell phone out and click to and respond to this number if you would vote yes on this particular question or no. And then he switched to a YouTube video in the middle of his presentation. And his engagement of a multi-sensory report methodology with kids who are always already tech savvy, they got quiet. You could hear a pin drop in the room. And I think that we would, we have not had a chance in Montgomery County to do a one-to-one initiative with our students except for a very small pilot that we did last spring. And I think 1 year only would at least tell us whether this is something we want to pursue, and still would have given all these kids this year, these 9th graders, a great experience. The other thing I think about, we're the technology corridor, Montgomery County, smack dab, middle of this technology corridor. And so I looked to see what other places were doing one-to-one initiatives. And I want to share it with you just because I think it's powerful. One of our close neighbors, Roanoke County, has been doing it for a long time. And when the budget went south, they had to stop. But as soon as their budget started to recover, they went back to funding their one-to-one initiative. And they're using laptops, but they went back to it. Very recently, Roanoke City, coming out of a retreat with the board and the superintendent, decided to put a tablet in the hands of every single 8th grader in their school system. Right now, they're working on a very aggressive timeline that would put those devices in their students' 8th graders' hands by November, very likely. So these are the counties, the municipalities that have already advised the state that they're going to participate, at least this year, in the e-learning backpack. And I forgot to mention Henry County. They've been doing it for a long time also. Buchanan, Charles City, Colonial Beach, Cumberland, Dinwiddie, Fairfax, Gloucester, Hampton, Hopewell, Isle of Wight, King and Queen, Loudon, Lunenburg, Manassas City, Martinsville, Norfolk, Northampton, Pennsylvania, Prince William, Virginia Beach. Our kids deserve this opportunity, and this is a chance that we have to give it to them. Another story that was so powerful to me because, our board initially rejected the e-learning backpack when we had such tough decisions to make back in the February, March. And I brought it back with the carryover because of several things, this being one of them, but also because of a trip that I took to Virginia Tech right before school started to their new signature engineering building, and some conversations I did in my head with what's the first thing our high school graduates want when they leave if they don't already have it. In the new signature engineering building, the student stations had 5 data ports, 5 plugins for every student. 5 each. So these kids are walking in there with every device under the sun, and they're getting it, charging it and using it, and they're freshman classes in there. And the first thing your high school graduate wants, if they don't already have it, some kind of a computing device. And so I really think that it's an opportunity, perhaps a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to try this in Montgomery County and see if it's worth investing in. Our board is fully aware, and I'm fully aware, that it may be 1 year only. They've asked us to start looking at writing grants. They've asked us to do outreach to the community to see if we can find other kinds of support if we don't have the budgetary support for it in year 2. So yes.
One more question.
Okay.
On your maintenance, how much do you have allocated now for maintenance?
For maintenance, in my regular budget, there are 2 lines that go to the maintenance and supplies and that kind of thing. There's about $208,000 that goes to small projects. And that's all that has ever been there in the operating budget of the school division. In addition to that, there's about 350 or 380, I don't remember the exact number and I don't have it in front of me, but it's in that range for custodial maintenance supplies and related kinds of purchases. So that's what's in my budget.
I'm talking just for maintenance on the buildings.
That's what I've got, the 3. Are you asking me about vehicles only, did you say?
No,
Okay.
maintenance on the buildings.
Yes.
If something goes wrong,
$200,000 is the round number, and that's all that has been in the regular operating budget of the school system in the entire time that I've been here, and that's the past practice, because it is not a maintenance budget, it's not a capital budget, it's a school operations budget.
I think Matt was next up.
Okay. Matt,
No, again, I just have a general question, so if you have a question for
okay.
Ms. Black.
Well, this is an aside note. I noticed that those counties that you mentioned represent all kinds of social economic situations. You've got counties that are poorer than Montgomery and counties that are richer that are involved in this e-backpack. So it's interesting to hear the range of counties that are actually doing this. But I had a question about the Title I and special ed funds that got cut out. Help me understand, because this is something that's always bothered me. I always had the impression, and maybe I was wrong about this, that when you had a child that was identified for special needs, I thought the feds were supposed to come forward with their part to help the county meet those needs. But it seems like in recent years, that budget's been cut. So when that budget is cut, then what it looks like to me is it's falling back on you to still provide the services.
Well, it's the way it's stated here, it misrepresents a little bit. Now, Angie didn't misrepresent, but maybe the way I put it in my budget misrepresented it. This is Title I and special ed funds that were not expended during 2013-14. And in fact, the majority of it was reimbursement requests that came in before June 30, when they ordinarily would not have come in until after June 30, just the timing reimbursements. So that's what this is.
That's what that is. Okay.
Restore is pre-K. So the Restore Title I and special ed, you can't really spend that federal money for something else. You have to generally spend it for the federal projects it's intended for.
Okay, thanks. That clears that up for me. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah, I don't know if this question is for Mr. Meadows or maybe it's for Angie. Is that I'm looking at slide 11 at our unallocated balance after the school school carry forward request and the school additional request, we have a net of $1.276 million, and then there's the other considerations. We talked about revenue sharing and then how much the one-time pay supplement would be. Do we have any sense about what county carry forward requests would be for the coming year?
Not at this time.
Generally, what it would be, given past years?
I'm trying to remember. There were a couple of years that we didn't allow carry forwards, but last year, wasn't it right at $1 million, Angie? Does that sound right?
Last year was 388.
Well, that didn't sound right. Okay, 388,000 last year was the carry forward amount.
We only allowed people to ask for 60% or something like that.
And when we allow carry forwards on the county side, it's only for one-time, non-recurring expenditures, and no personnel, no recurring expenses. So that, I don't know where I got $1 million. I guess that number has been a couple $100,000, and there were at least 1 or 2 years since I've been here that we didn't allow carry forwards.
Yeah, we have had up to close to $1 million before previously. It just depends on the year. And again, if we allow 100% of what people request, or we cap it off and only allow them to request a portion of it.
Okay. Then my second question is about the Board of Equalization, which we know is coming up as well. Do we have just kind of a ballpark on what?
Carol's our BOE expert.
Generally, what we have to pay for is we pay the members themselves for the number of days they have hearings. That plus this year we're going to need to, and we've always provided some supplemental staffing, but we were able to generally have someone who works with the reassessment people. They would stay here and we would continue with them through the Board of Equalization. There is no one here local that's working with the reassessment group, so we're going to have to bring in someone a little earlier in order to get them trained on the systems and be able to set up the schedule. So I'm estimating somewhere between 30,000 to 40,000.
Total?
Total.
For the, okay. Okay. And the reason, obviously, I'm asking that is that, with the carry forward, we're not just dealing with the school's request, we're dealing with these other considerations as well. The revenue sharing, which we've traditionally done $500,000, and Angie's suggestion makes sense, is that might, about including that in our regular operating budget for the coming year might be a good idea, since we're always doing it. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions?
The only other thing I have is so when, on the county side, let's say that you only give 60% of the carryover, then you put the other 40% back into the general fund?
It just stays in the general fund if we do that.
Yeah, any unallocated amounts, once we do any carry forwards or whatnot, just fall into the general fund balance to carry forward for the future.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? I see none. Okay. Okay, Mr. Meadows, I guess we can go next.
Well, for those two items, I know that there was some discussion once we come out of work session. The board can either give direction to staff or we can have that on the agenda for a future meeting for further discussion as well. Tonight was to give the board an opportunity to ask questions so you can start thinking about how to deal with those. And that actually took care of items 2 and 3. Item 2 was the carryover funds. Item 3 was the $575,000 for capital needs. And Brenda, thank you for being here. And John and Katie, y'all too. The next item under work session is VDOT revenue sharing program for fiscal year 2016. Can't believe we're already working on 2016, but the request under tab G, we received a letter from VDOT basically stating that by October 31st, they would like a application for funding, proposed funding for any revenue sharing projects that the county would propose for 2016. Traditionally, over the last couple of years, we have appropriated approximately $500,000 for projects, and last year I believe that $500,000 was split between the Shawsville-Elliston area and the Reiner area, I believe is the way we handled that last year. We do have a project that has been brought to our attention for potential consideration for fiscal year 16, and that is a project on Price's Fork Road, the area between McCoy Road and Brooksfield Road on Price's Fork. There's been a tremendous number of rear-end accidents through that section. We've been talking with VDOT about what it would take to 3-lane that road through a good portion of that area to provide for turn lanes at several of the key intersections there. That project would also be of benefit to the redevelopment of the old Price's Fork Elementary School. There's going to have to be some road work that's done in conjunction with that project, so there may be an opportunity for the developer to assist in providing some funds for that project as well. The preliminary estimate for that project is in the $1.8 million range, and that's just a very preliminary estimate. So one of the things that we've talked about is if the board would be interested in continuing the $500,000 appropriation, and VDOT matched that, that would provide $1 million in the upcoming year, and then up to $1 million in the following year, which would knock that project out in 2 years if the board wanted to do that. I also received an email today from Ms. Nystrom that's down in the Sugar Grove area. I think she's brought some issues down in that area to several of the board members' attention regarding Guardwell. I do not have an estimate for anything in that area, but those are the two projects that come to mind. The Price's Fork project would benefit that area, and also the traffic with the VT dairy farm being relocated down to the Whitethorn area. There's going to be increased traffic on that road, so it would be a good safety improvement project. But those are my thoughts, and would certainly open it up to the board for any discussion or thoughts that you may have on other projects.
Okay.
I've always got comments when it comes to highways, because I've got a whole bunch of them out there. And the only thing I might say is that if Tech is want to move some things down the road over there, if you give it a day or two, VDOT will probably do theirs, and we'll have to be paying 50% of it. That seems to be the way it usually goes when it goes that way. But anyhow, we got a road down my way called Boner's Run. I think if you'll ask VDOT, you'll find out that is the road that they probably spent more money per foot on than any other road that they spent on this past year. Barrels keep getting rolled out, and you have the big rains, and they just up in there where it rains a lot. You know, they can't help it rains, but it does, and when it rains in there, it has a tendency to be very bad, at least very strong. But I'm definitely in favor of doing some revenue sharing of some kind, whatever it's going to take. I know I kind of promised a few things along last year before we did the stuff that's coming up. It was $28,000 to $38,000 of my money that I had allocated to do some roads that they took to do that road instead because they wanted to get it done for 8 weeks. So none of that never seems to ever come back, but anyhow. I think we need to get our roads in shape. If we was to have a program that was there every year and you could count on it and you could allocate money, I think that eventually we would get it all done. And it could be turned over to VDOT as a surfaced road, and then VDOT would go take care of it. So that's my thoughts on it.
I'd like to hear some traffic counts and things like that. It's just, I started thinking about the Prices Fork Road. That might help 10,000 people, or 5,000 people. But I don't know how those folks are going to think about 3 lanes and the turn lanes through Prices Fork. And so, but I'd like to hear some of that aspect of things. I know that we tried to address some of the Reiner needs and Charlottesville needs. In my district, we've got a fair amount of gravel roads. I know in Bill's district, he's got more than I've got in my district. And so I'd like to see how we can get as much bang for the buck as far as traffic counts to be able to help as many people as we possibly can, as many citizens as we can. I understand what you were talking about, but as I understand about the funds, that the $23,000, they did finish that project, and then those were some leftover funds that were left over in regards to that project that was down your way. But I would like to get a better idea of some of the numbers where we could affect more of the citizens and help more of the citizens. But I'm in favor of setting aside some of the money to address some of the roads, because there is a lot of unpaved roads here in Montgomery County.
I think Mr. Tuck's suggestion about the traffic counts, if those were easily accessible would be a good idea for the various projects that are in consideration. So.
Let me say something right quick. The Highway Safety Board that I'm on, the sheriff just, when we were talking about needing some estimates as to how fast people were going or how many of them are traveling there. And he has something on 2 or 3 of his cars that he can go down and have it to you in a day's time. So that might be a good way to find out just how many folks are around. So I don't know. It just came up our last meeting, matter of fact.
What I'd like to say, since I'd like to say that I hope this board will give some priority to some other districts other than, since I've been on this board, the money's been going to out in the Roanoke area and to the Charlottesville area, and there haven't been any projects out my way. And so I hope when we get to that point that some priority will be given to that area out there.
Well, the Prices Fork Road, I mean, we all knew when the schools were being built down there, what was going to happen. We all knew that. And we also knew that it was going to create, like a lot of traffic and accidents could occur. So I think we really do need to look at that for safety's sake, because you have a lot going on there in the mornings with people coming and going to Virginia Tech and to the schools, like both ways, and in the afternoon too. That road is very, very busy.
Could we put up some traffic signs? Could we put up some flashing lights or something like that?
Well, it's the thing with, we have Snuffy's, Riverway,
Right.
You have Brooksfield to turn off there, you have Thomas Lane and so forth. And what happens is that you have so many people turning and things like that, you have a lot of rear-end collisions down through that area. And it's difficult for even people. I mean, when I come to these board meetings at a 6 o'clock meeting, I leave home at like 5 o'clock because a lot of times you'll sit at McCoy Road and a line of traffic from 114 when it gets by, here's a line of traffic emerge. So
Sure.
you'll sit there, you can just put your car up in park for about 5 minutes
Right.
till you get a break just
Oh,
to pull
yeah.
out, and then it's a line behind you.
Yeah, well, I was
So
just...
it's a lot of
Right. Well, I know that
problems
the
there.
extra lane is
Yeah.
important, but I was thinking, could we have some way of notifying people, slow down
Well, I mean,
with flashing lights?
Well, you put to notify people to slow down. Well, that could happen all over the Commonwealth with the
Oh, I
police
know,
sitting here
I
and
know.
things like this.
I
And
know. They
and we
won't
do
do it.
have quite a few deputies set with radar all out through that area there. But when you look at just the sheer volume of traffic, and we
I've
know
been
that
through
Dairy Farm is going to be moved down
Oh, yeah.
down that way, and like I think for about 10 or 12 from daylight to dark, all this week they've been hauling what you call silage.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole line of trucks coming out. There's a whole line of trucks coming in. I'm saying like, wow, and they're
Right.
still doing it. I mean,
Right.
I have one other thing,
Well, I think
if I could.
that would be part of the consideration.
Talk about bicycles earlier. There was, a bike going down Christiansburg Mountain here last week. Person behind him said he fell back and he was running, he backed off the bike to give him a lot of room. Said he figured he was doing about 42 miles an hour. Had a blowout or something on his tire. They call lifeguard 10. I don't know what his. I don't know how he was when he got to the hospital, but it was bad enough that they got lifeguard 10 in there on him. So, these bicycles are dangerous, and they need. I know that all of them know that. Well, they'll tell you they know everything they need to know about riding a bike, but when they mess up, they really mess up good. And one thing, just for you, I'm going to satisfy Mr. Brown's curiosity here.
Go ahead.
I hope you'll go and do this. If you'll check the last, how long have you been, 5 years?
6 or 6.5, something like that.
I think you're going.
This year's 7.
Seven. You're going 7.
You're getting the,
Okay.
I'm having so much fun. Yeah.
The best, all I was going to say is the best I recollect, I only had 2 allocations of any kind in 5 years, and I don't think I had any of those 6 years. But go check that out.
Maybe I might be mistaken, but just thinking that seemed like we would split 250 in Rhina and 250 out in there. I think last year before last, as we put money in. And I don't think Mary's asked but for about one thing in her district, and that you had Craig Street Road, and Chris, yeah.
I'll say this, Annette got more money in the last 10 years than I.
Wow.
Okay. Well, if I'm incorrect, I apologize.
And that's a fact.
I apologize.
I helped her get it done there.
Well, I think you have to look at the needs, the critical needs, and it's not to say that, all of them are different as far as you look at them, and we know from going on the road trips, Gary, you've got some issues, and we know there are issues, and we know that. And the problem is, it's just frustrating because we never have enough money, and it is hard to, everyone tries to work together and to do what's right for everyone. So it's not to say that one district is less than the others. It's just that I guess the Price's Fork thing concerns me because of the number of people going on it, you know what I mean, at any given time, and then especially at those times during the morning and the evening, and there have been some accidents there, and it could be the possibility, which I would hate to think about, but the way people drive, especially, and I don't want to say anything against when students come back, but it just seems like there's a lot of driving that's a little bit different, like when the students come back, and I'm just afraid that maybe something, could happen that would maybe a school bus would be involved, or maybe, you know, like a smash one car, then smash another and another. So I think that's where, you know, that part was coming from.
I'm extremely surprised that you haven't had an accident in the old Ellis Creek going down the back way out of Blacksburg.
That's true.
I mean, they fly.
Yeah, the back way, yeah, I know what you mean.
I think we need to just admit that there's just not enough money to address the needs of this county, especially the roadway needs.
Yeah. All right, so do we want to?
Well, I think Matt has a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to ask about the process. Is that it says in the VDOT letter that we need to submit something by end of October. So when and how would we formulate this list? Would that be at the next meeting, or?
What I'd like, again, tonight, just as with the previous items, tonight was mainly to make sure you had plenty of information. We will have this back on the agenda for direction at the next meeting, just to have discussion and move it forward.
Would it be possible to get some data, some information by that meeting, or do you think that, okay?
Yes, I just made a note to, yes.
Okay, would you need direction on which specific areas we would need more information about? Or do you feel that you have enough? I mean, I think Bill's suggestion, I want some more information on that. And
well, and we already have a lot of the information on Price's Fork Road because we're working on the project with the old elementary school out there. So
And it seems like it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, David had a list of the high traffic counts on.
He does.
It's been since I've been on the board that I was looking at that. So he may have the numbers and be able to update it to get a better idea, and perhaps we could request that of him.
Sure.
And what you're saying, we'll get together at the next meeting and we'll talk about this some more. I just want us to be able to meet the deadline by the 31st.
Yes,
so we have to finalize the list in the first meeting in October. You know,
that's why we had it on tonight's agenda. So even if you don't come to consensus at the next meeting, we've still got the first meeting of October to work on it as well.
Thank you.
Everybody good?
That's what I was going to.
Okay, we'll move on to. I guess it's number 5.
Yes, sir. Last item is a letter from the superintendent to me on behalf of the school board that's under tab H, related to disposition of properties associated with the Shawsville Middle School. Under that tab, you'll see that the property that we're discussing involves the facilities where the track, football field, tennis courts, concession stand area are. If you recall, earlier this year, the school board demolished the old annex building that was across the street from the middle school, and I didn't know this. That was at one time used as an elementary school. Is that? Did not. I didn't.
That's where I went to first grade.
Is it really?
It's been a long time, didn't it?
I did. I'm not touching that. I didn't realize that that had been used for that, but there have been some concerns regarding those facilities. The school board has indicated that they do not use that property any further for educational needs, and that they are willing to surplus that to the county if the county is interested in it. We did find out in researching it that there's actually 2 parcels, one consistent of the amenities that I just mentioned, and then the parcel to the right, which houses or currently has an old baseball field on it. That property is already owned by the county. The county obtained that property some years ago, apparently in a trade with VDOT. So we actually own the old baseball field, but we do not own all the areas that I mentioned earlier. So the school board had voted to surplus that property to the county, and it's up to the county board to decide whether they want to pursue that and accept it or not. So that's the item for the work session.
Can I ask a question real quick before it gets off of my mind?
Sure.
Has the county been charging any money for use of the baseball field? Who has? They've been paying it. I just wonder who's collecting.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that we realized that
I'll
that was.
find out.
I don't know that we were aware that that was our parcel until we did some research to find out, because it goes way back as far as a trade that was done many years ago, apparently.
I didn't think they had, but also I just got told last week, said they've been charging us and charging us pretty good too. So I didn't bother to ask who they were, but I will.
So who's being charged? The Parks and Rec?
People using the field.
Cross teams, things like that.
Oh, so like the club teams?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Comments?
Is there a downside to us accepting the parcel? I'm just curious why this is on work session. Usually when these properties are surplus,
Well,
maybe I'm just missing something.
Well, my thoughts are, anybody else have any thoughts? Okay, my thoughts are is that I think it's, is it Mountain Valley Charitable Organization? They want, I guess, to enter into an agreement to maintain the field and so forth. I guess if the county received it as surplus property, they would do something, enter into something with us. But if the schools retain it, they can have a memorandum of understanding with the schools, because the schools always said they might need it for what?
Or can be through the county and them letting schools use it.
Yeah, that they want to, let me see, find out.
It's number, I believe it's number 3.
Yeah, it's number 3. The school board desires to convey the title of the property to Montgomery County Board of Supervisors, with the understanding that the Board of Supervisors make available to Montgomery County, I think it's a school board, what they want to use, it's a word missing, it's Montgomery County Board, to use as needed for educational purposes. But I think if the school retained it and had an agreement with Mountain Valley Charitable Organization, that would give them control to use it anytime they wanted to use it, and then work with those people. Okay.
Then why did they surplus it?
The original plan was to eliminate some of these amenities on that current field because of some liability concerns from the schools. These are older facilities. The bleachers, the light poles on the track, there are some liability concerns, and whoever owns the property, whether it's the schools, us, Mountain Valley, are going to be required to spend some money on those amenities in order to put them back to use.
So if these were, do we have any language from the school board saying that if this site were refurbished, they would use it for athletic facilities?
No, they've basically said that they no longer have a need for it. According to Virginia Code 22.1-129, there's not been any discussion about if the fields were refurbished, would they keep the fields. I know
I'm curious what's going on here. I'm confused. So,
Brenda, would you like to address why your board elected to surplus the property?
Sure.
With the building of the new East Montgomery High School, all of the official athletic events and activities, both those from club activities and from the middle school, go to the high school to do the activities. And on that parcel of land, there are there's a storage shed, there's a concession stand, there's a ticket booth, and there's a stadium structure, and there are multiple light posts there that are very old. So from our perspective, we were going to remove the structures, period, and have green space. But there appeared to be some objection because of some community recreational use that involved some of the structures. The school does not use the structures, and I don't want to spend my $200,000 on structures that I don't use. We did do the light pole inspection. It was $4,500 just to get somebody out there to tell us it was safe.
So the idea would be to somehow get somebody to maintain it for recreational use without having to.
We can go mow the grass easily if it
Yeah.
doesn't have those structures
Sure.
and the liability issues that are associated with the structures. So it's not a problem for us unless it is a community recreational area and the structures are needed to be preserved for use by someone other than us, because we're not going to use the structures.
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
What was that?
No, go ahead.
Are you looking to keep this as a reserve? Because in that one paragraph, it kind of sounds like you might need it again. Is that for reserve, like the flood field? I mean,
We go
you have
there
flood on
for
the-
a crisis drill.
Okay.
We go out, that's where we evacuate. And we do use that ball field that Craig was the one who told me that it's already owned by the county occasionally. And they go out there and walk around the track. But we're not going to demolish the track or the tennis or, we're going to just take the structures out and increase the green space and reduce the maintenance cost. And it was part of the initial plan to do that demolition at that campus.
So would the idea be that if we were to, this is more of a question for the board, is that if we were to accept this as a surplus property, is that it would be added into the Parks and Rec
No.
kind of stable properties?
Well, and if I can just interject there, the concern that staff has if it's added to Parks and Rec is it is a large amount to maintain, and we're currently struggling to maintain what we have, and we've also discussed the potential for development at the old Shawsville Elementary School for recreation. So it would require some dollars if that's the board's desire. I'd be very uncomfortable accepting that on our current staff.
Okay.
We have somebody here from the Mountain Valley
That's what it is.
Foundation
Yeah. Could we?
that would tell you what they're willing to do in
Sure.
order to
Yeah.
make
Come
this
on.
thing done.
Come on, sir.
Mr. Hawes.
Yeah.
Pass these out first.
Sure. I'll pass them down if you want. You won't need one of them?
Yeah, and that you, when you start off, just state your name and address for
Yes,
the
sir.
record.
I was just waiting for the letters
Okay.
to be handed out. My name is Mike Hawes, Hawes. I live at 8101 Roanoke Road in Elliston, Virginia. This evening, I'm representing the Mountain Valley Charitable Foundation. We had heard about the schools being willing to let those fields go. We consider them a tremendous community asset, and shoot, as Gary said, he went to first school there. Well, everybody in the community's been playing ball on those fields or running track or doing other things. So we're extremely interested in maintaining those as an asset for the community, and would be more than happy to work with you all. We did do the Meadowbrook Center in Charlottesville, where the facility was given to the county. We leased back majority of it. We put some $3 million into that building over the course of time with the Waldron Wellness Center, the community center, different offices and developments there. So we'd be more than happy to work with Parks and Rec on this project also. We've had a good relationship with them in the past, and also as far as the school needs are concerned. But we see the opportunity for additional venues and additional uses of that property to encourage tourism, to encourage economic development activity in our area. We think that can do very well, and we should certainly hate to lose it. If I can answer any questions, I'm presenting this as a process of beginning a proposal and negotiation with the county for us to be able to operate that facility. So I don't think we've got any more specifics tonight, but I'd love to get together with Craig and Harvey to go over this.
So the devil's always in the details.
Always.
So, if the issue raised by Ms. Blackburn is the structures being unsafe, I mean, that would be the big concern, is making sure that they're brought up to.
It would be, and we'd be carrying the insurance on that.
You'd be carrying the insurance, okay, and you would be responsible for the upkeep of those buildings and bringing them up to a reasonable standard, okay?
Yes, we would. And as far as the maintenance goes, there's quite a few junk trees that are growing up on the property. Lanthus trees and others that need to be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we'd be doing that. What we would want is the mowing worked out one way or the other.
Okay.
But the man who's maintained those fields, for 20 years, Dr. Scott Haygood, Virginia Tech Extension, and he's a turf grass expert, and he maintained those fields for over 20 years by himself. And so he's perfectly willing to step back up to the game to work on that.
Mm-hmm. Is the idea that since we know there are two parcels there, is it the idea to combine these two parcels in the agreement with Mountain Valley?
Absolutely. We don't, like I said, until we started researching this, we really didn't know we owned the baseball field. It goes way back. So yes, it would be to encompass the entire property.
Well, I mean, I'd be interested in hearing more about this.
To me, this is, when we've talked about some ball fields and the need for ball fields in that area, we've got a nonprofit who's willing to help us maintain it. And this is a park. I understand the schools are not in the business of running parks. And so, to me, this seems to be a win. It gives the community an area. I've been to the 4th of July parade a few times. I know how it backs up down there. They kind of, and everything getting lined up. And so, to me, I'd really like to see us look at this and multi-use for the baseball field. Maybe we could end up using it for soccer in the outfield and the like. So, I'd really like to take a look at this.
And you might note that, she just stated that the light poles were found to be okay. There's nothing wrong with them, so just normal. And that was one of the reasons supposedly back 6 months ago that they were going to get rid of the thing, was to get rid of the light poles that were bad. So
I remember when we did that whole business down there, when we were working on Christiansburg High and Blacksburg High, and then we're working on the ball fields and the light poles and the tennis courts, and we worked with some of the people in the county when all that, from down there took place.
I was just going to say, the biggest issue for both boards was, of course, the safety of what's down there, like the bleachers and the buildings. And I'm glad the light poles are okay. That was a concern too. So I think that was why our board was like, okay, do you take something that's going to need a lot of work and cost money when you're so very selective with what money you have, but yet, as has been stated, it's an opportunity. And so when you step forward to offer assistance, that I think, and that was the concern the school side had too, was like what the liability of someone gets hurt or something happens, while they're in ownership. So it sounds like to me, with you stepping forward, you're actually saying that your foundation would address those structures.
Yes.
That was the key problem there.
And the difference is, we are there.
Yeah.
And it is part of our community. And we want to maintain that. And so, yes, we'll have volunteers. We'll have fundraisers to work on the projects. And we'll take care of it.
For my own information, and I like what Chris and Matt has said about moving forward. Now, to sort of quantify this thing, is that to move forward with the board accepting it as a surplus property, or letting them work directly with the school board and then we work directly with our little piece?
I think it'd be best for us to accept the property and combine the parcels.
I agree with Matt. I think that I understand where Craig's coming from, the dollars and cents aspect of things, but I guess I look at the schools are in the business of running schools, not running parks. That kind of falls on us. And so working in conjunction with some folks, it sounds like the school board wants to get rid of the liability. And I think this is a good opportunity for everybody. It's not my district. I know it's Gary's, but it just seems like a good opportunity.
We have worked with the county in the past with the Meadowbrook Center there. I think we've worked things out very well. We've done nothing but good together, both of us, the county and us.
Yeah, I asked for clarification to give Mr. Meadows the direction to
I would also say that, the bleachers, it's not that they are bad. They didn't say there was something wrong with them. They said they weren't built to the standard of today's bleachers.
Right.
They were open in the back. Well, since then, I've looked at them all over the state of Virginia, and at least 70% of them are made the same way them down there are made. So, yeah, you can make a case for anything you want to make a case for, but sometimes it don't work.
Now, let me ask this question. Now, when you say bleachers, are the bleachers the requirements, and these are for public schools?
These are aluminum.
Yeah, I mean, they're for public schools.
Yeah.
But if it's surplus to us and it's county property, would those bleachers need to meet the same standards as a football stadium, or so to speak?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well,
Legal.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I don't know, but I certainly, if they're required, then all these other schools in Virginia, at least 50% of them are.
Well, if there is a concern about liability, I mean, is there a process by which we can accept the property in the same meeting, turn over the liability to, if we decide to go forward with this, to Mountain Valley Humane?
Only if we have an agreement in place.
Have an agreement.
In the contract that we have with the county on Meadowbrook Center, there is a requirement for us to carry a certain amount of liability insurance.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one of the details of the lease contract to be worked out.
So we don't have to act on accepting that surplus property right now.
No,
correct?
and my recommendation would be allow us to work on an agreement between the county and Mountain Valley to bring back, and then if that agreement's acceptable, then you could accept the agreement and accept the transfer of the property.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That'd give us some time too we have a routing club down there that's very active to see how much real help that we've got going forward to take care of it.
Well, just one thing on 3 here that you read, it says make available to the county board, which would be the school board, to use as needed for educational. If we accept that and something happens with this gentleman's,
It would be
does
between.
that mean we have to hold on to it so the school could use it?
No, it means that if we work out an arrangement with Mountain Valley, if the schools need it for an event or whatnot, they would have to coordinate it through Mountain Valley. Mountain Valley would be the programming agent for the property, so.
Right, but what I'm saying, number 3 says board of supervisors. Are we agreeing that we're gonna keep a hold of it in case something happens to them, that they can use it if they need to? That's what I'm looking at.
I'm planning on, at least in my mind, would be holding on to it, but utilizing the nonprofit to maintain it if possible. But at the same time, I'm just sitting there thinking, all right, why would they need to evacuate? Well, there's a rail yard. I mean, the railroad goes through, and who knows what might happen. Maybe they do need to evacuate the kids up that way. And so here we would have a space to be able to move them to if needed. So that sounds like what Ms. Blackburn, or let's say that somebody goes out there and leaves the sprinklers on all night and they can't play football on that day. You never know, stuff like that's happened. And you got
That's why you got people that are going to take care of that type.
Right, and so, well, no, I'm just saying, so then you can fall back on, maybe they could utilize it. I think that's what Ms. Blackburn is saying, is a backup, that they don't need it for any primary, but there might be a few things that the school board would need it for.
Well, that's something they can work into the agreement when they.
Yes.
And maybe I'm reading too much into what she was saying.
We'd be perfectly amenable to that. Meadowbrook offers, acts as an emergency shelter during storms and other events too. So we open the doors and we have our own generators and hot water and kitchens.
Okay. We good?
We're good.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, and sorry you had to wait so long.
Not at all. I'll call tomorrow.
I look forward to working with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chair, that ends all the 49 things we had for work session.
Need a motion to go out of work session.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
I think, was it board report or other business?
Other business before the board report.
Okay.
Yeah, we can move other business to before the reports.
Yeah. Well, let's deal with other business, that resolution, I guess.
Yes, sir. You do have a resolution in your packet.
It's an ordinance.
Sorry, you have an ordinance in your package under tab A related to this. An ordinance vacating a lot line and public utility easement between lots 411 and 412 located in the Blacksburg Country Club Estates, Section 2, subdivision recorded in Plat Book 5, page 19 in the Montgomery County Circuit Court Clerk's Office, David P. and Edith Ann P. Duncan. And that is, as I said, in your packet. And this would be an action from the public hearing if you so desire.
Need a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Now it's time for the county attorney's report.
No report, Mr. Chair.
County administrator's report.
Just a few things this evening, Mr. Chairman. I want to report, and I appreciate Carol attending this meeting. I was unable to last week regarding the update on the permanent park and ride lot. Just wanted to give you a few facts and figures. The plan is to expand the temporary park and ride lot to a permanent facility of 200 to 300 spaces. The site that they're considering is about 5 acres. The amenities that would be added would potentially include lighting, sidewalks, bus shelter, bike racks, lockers, and drop and ride areas. The most important thing that I wanted to mention from that is there will be a public hearing on October 30th, and likely the public hearing will be at Falling Branch Elementary School. I'm not real sure if that's the best place for a public hearing on the park and ride lot or not, but that was what was suggested. I just read that and I was like, whoa. Anyway, there'll be a public hearing on October 30th for the public to learn more about the permanent facility and just discuss options. Construction is slated to begin about a year from now, and the project would be completed in 2016. So VDOT is moving forward with that project. As I said, they had a meeting and they're looking forward to getting that done. There's also been interest expressed from the Tourism Development Council about the possibility of, if there's any out parcels created as a result of that development, could be a very good spot for a welcome center type, visitor center type facility as well. So we're going to, I plan to attend on the 30th, and we'll certainly be following that particular item as well. I did want to mention also when we recognized Phil Martin earlier, failed to make Carol stand up as well. Carol is the direct oversight for our IT department and does a great job in keeping Phil and his folks on task. And Carol, that award is well deserved. Thank you for all the work you do on that. Last thing is we are continuing to solicit and try to get information on this Mountain Valley Pipeline project. I will tell you that we received a call today from someone right outside the town of Blacksburg who's received a letter from the group that is doing the surveying. And if that's the case, that route is much further east than what we've previously seen. Again, our folks in GIS have been reaching out. They have Bob Pearsall has a contact with the folks. We're trying to get all of the information we can. They're not required to provide any information to us. They're required to provide it to the property owners. But with that being said, we're going to continue to push that issue.
Can we reach out to Town of Blacksburg, Town of Christiansburg, see if they've had any of their constituents contact them?
Be glad to.
About this?
As a matter of fact, we have a managers, once a quarter, the managers in our region get together for a lunch, and that meeting is scheduled for Thursday. And one of the things on the agenda is Dan Campbell's the manager in Floyd. He's going to brief us on their efforts, and so absolutely we'll all.
There's a possibility they may be developing alternative routes, which is something they generally do before they go to the administrative review period. Like they'll come in with 2 or 3 different routes. So I know we've seen one possibly just going through a small part of the county, more so in Pulaski, and then a lot of times they'll come in with a solution that's more urban that makes that one look better. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
I told you that I saw one of them up in West Virginia, just on the edge of Virginia, West Virginia, to last meeting. Well, since then I found out there's actually 2 lines.
That's right, yeah.
Completely total line. One is coming in down, what is it, 64 down there?
Yeah.
Turns back right along there and going down to the ocean. And the other one is coming up here.
Yeah, the first one you mentioned is the one that Governor McAuliffe came out in support of last week. I don't remember which one that one's called. That's another large line. As long as the exploration and the fracking continues in Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, the companies are going to be looking ways to get it south and east.
Get it out of there.
So. But we will continue to follow up on that as much as we can, and we'll certainly reach out to everybody that we can to get more information. And that is all I have, sir.
Okay. Supervisor King.
Just a short thing. I just want to invite everybody to go to a fire department anywhere in Montgomery County on Fire Prevention Week, and just let them know how much you appreciate what they do. That's all.
That's a good idea.
Mr. Creed.
No report.
Mr. Perkins.
All right. I have the agenda from last month's MPO, the Roanoke one.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to forward it to all the board members, and particularly, you have it though, right?
I do, and I was going to say I'll be glad to put it in the Friday packet if you'd
report.
like me to do that.
And the reason for that is there's some discussion about changing the name to the Metropolitan Transportation something or other.
Oh, that's the one down that way, right?
That way. Then on top of that, they need more money for matching funds to get things done, so they're going to assess everybody 15 cents per capita that's in there. And for us, it'll be something like $200. It's not a very large amount because we only have something 1,300.
Piece.
Tiny little piece of it. But then also, we have not, and I have not been given yet, the study on the intermodal.
I haven't seen it either.
And I don't think Craig has seen it either. And so the problem there, of course, is that we don't know what they've recommended or where or how or what's going on. But nevertheless, that's supposed to be coming to us very quickly. Then in these minutes and in this agenda, There are some other things. You know, the Commonwealth Transportation Board has a whole new approach. You've heard this so much. Mary knows it. Baco's talked about it. That there's no longer a 6-year plan. From now on, it will be based on priorities.
House Bill 2.
What?
It's called it's based on House Bill 2.
Right, and it's priorities. The community decides what are the priorities. That's what gets funded, period. Doesn't matter. 6-year plan's gone, and the reason for that is because we never got around to the 6-year plan, if you recall. So they decided that there would be a new approach. And I'd just like for you to read and give some consideration to the kinds of things that you think are priorities for the whole, for this MPO and this transportation group, that it's the same thing. Some of the priorities that you have for our belonging and being a part of this group. I mean, I don't think we have a choice. It's a federal kind of thing, and we're there. Also, they've designated the whole Roanoke area, if you know about it, Todd County and what have you, Roanoke County, Roanoke City, we're in there, is now a highly urbanized community with 200,000 people. So they're going to have to do some different things about the way they run business, which also means that because 1,300 people, Elliston down, are on this agenda, a part of this, that affects us too. And it's all in the minutes and the report, so I'd like to just make certain that it gets to everybody just in case you would read it. But it would also give me some direction, and I would very much like to have that back, because our next meeting should be before the next meeting in September of the MPO. So that's my thing, but that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but once you read the amendment, the agenda too, you'll see that it's fairly well laid out. Okay? Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And thank you. Supervisor Biggs.
Well, I want to convey the thanks from the library to Craig. I guess they went down to Meadowbrook and they're trying to do something with those roots that are sticking out of the sidewalks that were dangerous, and Paula was very pleased about that. And in your packet tonight, you received the Montgomery Floyd Regional Library Strategic Plan for 2014 to 2017. And if you look through it on page 12 and on page 13, they have target dates for things. And one of them, and on page 14 even, it says that in the fiscal year 2016 to 2017, they have 2 targets that involve capital. One is to develop plans in conjunction with local governments to plan for a new Blacksburg library, and the other is to plan for renovation and expansion of the Christiansburg library to provide more space for collections, computers, and children's programs. So just to draw your attention to the fact that, you know, they too have capital needs, and so that's in here if you want to look at that. And then just to let you know, the Community Services Board moved their meeting to that October 30th date when you're having the park and ride. Otherwise, I go to the park and ride because the Thursday before was the Miami Tech game, and they figured they wouldn't be able to get people in and out of town for the meeting if they came to the meeting. So they did change their date there, and that's all I have.
Supervisor Tuck.
8 years ago, Eric Sutton was murdered, and I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to it. It's been 8 years and just a few days. There is a foundation that was set up in his name through the Community Foundation. It's a 501(c)(3), provides scholarships for law enforcement officers throughout the New River Valley, not just with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. And just if anyone has some extra money that they'd like to donate for a wonderful cause, that would be a great place to make a donation. In addition, not to forget those who have fallen, and trying to make sure that we stay safe. Nothing else.
Thank you. Mr. Gabriel.
Just a few very brief things. I attended the EDC meeting I guess 2 weeks ago and heard a lot about drones. How drones are coming to the area. From one of the assistant directors, associate directors at ICTAS, the institute at Virginia Tech, and the kind of economic benefits that those could bring to the area. I also wanted to ask Mr. Meadows about the planning about the county conversations for the coming fall, if we could maybe get some dates for those sometime soon.
We're working on that, don't have anything definite yet.
Okay, that would be good to hear about. And then kind of following on from Mary's comment, which reminded me, I've been meaning to ask about this, is that when we talked about the budget way back when, is that one of the things that was discussed was a capital plan this year for parks and for libraries. And so I wanted to know about the status of that, because I think we had expressed an interest in going forward with that. And if we had not, then I'm doing so right now.
So noted, yes.
And that's all. Thank you.
Well, it's left up to me. All I'm going to say is, how about them Hokies?
Yes.
And we are adjourned.
Thank you.